Okay, good evening, guys. Welcome. Today I'm going to talk to you about what divorce attorneys don't want you to know. And as a family law attorney with over a decade of experience now in family law, which seems crazy to me, I have a lot to talk about when it comes to divorce litigations and what attorneys do and do not do for their clients during the process. So let's get into it. So, the first thing to know is that many of the colleagues that I encounter on a regular basis are very motivated to move cases forward and stay out of court. I have a lot of really great people that I work with on a regular basis. I'm in Santa Clara County, but I work with attorneys in all different counties at times. And, um, but it's important to know that there's always going to be um, a couple attorneys that approach things from a very litigious, meaning they are, filing a lot of motions or not necessarily engaging in settlement discussions or not proactively encouraging their client to engage in those types of discussions. It's also very common. That's going to come with, increased animosity and most importantly, increased attorney's fees. And so when you're picking an attorney, you really want to make sure you're finding somebody that fits what your goals are, but you also should be weary of going into an attorney and them agreeing with everything you have to say. Some of my favorite clients, we had very stressful consultations because I was pushing against them a lot and giving them kind of the bad news and saying, these are the things you have to know. And because I didn't sugarcoat things, because I didn't just say whatever they wanted to hear, yes, we'll fight this, you have this argument, they felt, and this is what they've shared with me, they felt, right, that they were not going to just be another billable hour, right? They were not just going to be another case that was bringing in money. I was going to invest time in coming up with a result and making sure they didn't waste their time filing motions that weren't going to benefit them in the long run. And so, there's a couple things that my clients know, right? I'm not going to let them litigate everything, like, even if they have a basis for it, right? This is the distinction. Lots of times there's a legal argument or factual support for the claims my clients want to make. And the big picture is that if it doesn't move the long-term goal of your case forward, then instead what we do is we review all the options and figure out what to focus our energy on instead that's actually going to get us to where we want to go. So that takes me to the first thing attorneys don't want you to know, specifically divorce attorneys, but some of this stuff can apply to a lot of different matters, so it's important to kind of keep that in mind. The first thing is that mediation can save you thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. For the majority of couples, mediation should be the first option when approaching your divorce case, and so often it's not, because people, they Google search divorce attorney near me. I need to know the laws. I need to know what I'm entitled to, what I can argue for. And don't get me wrong, there's a number of reasons why sometimes you need to bring an attorney on board and you need to file a motion. There's things that need to be resolved quickly, and if you have a difficult partner, I get it. So there's going to be exceptions, right? But if you can start in mediation, get ahead of the process early, you are going to see so many different benefits in the long run. Sometimes it can be hard to see it when you're in it. Sometimes it can be easy to say, well, if I just go in front of court, I know I'm going to get this. So why would I agree to it? Well, you're going to pay the attorney. You're going to build animosity. If you have children, it's going to increase the conflict long term. And ultimately, if you have a really educated mediator and is collecting the information in an efficient way and guiding you to the conversations, likely you're going to end up at a pretty similar result in a different way that you two were able to decide. So mediation can look like just the two of you and your mediator. So you don't have attorneys, it's just the kind of the three people working together to come up with a plan about how you're going to divide your assets, what's going to happen with certain support related conversations, as well as parenting plans and things like that, right? It can be the mediator. You both can have attorneys still, and you can be mediating together. So some people like knowing that they have somebody in their corner to run by the law with and brainstorm with. So mediation doesn't mean no attorneys. There's lots of different types of mediation. Some of my clients really like having their attorneys in mediation with me, and it can be a very valuable tool when the roadblock is a legal issue that both parties seem to be really stuck on. And you can also bring other experts involved. CPAs, forensic accountants, real estate appraisers, whatever the need is for your case. So mediation can be very, very collaborative. You build a team together. And instead of going in front of a judge and letting a stranger decide what should happen with your money, what should happen with your property, how it should be split, and also what holidays your children are going to spend with you, you two get to stay in control of the process, as well as make it more specific for your family needs, more specific for your needs. Not everybody needs to have all the assets divided 50-50. I'm in California, so I'm always going to talk a little bit in community property law context. But not everyone's going to need everything divided 50-50. You can come up with a unique way that addresses both people's financial concerns. I always say to my mediation clients, we should be able to get you all your wants, right? We should be able to get you all your wants, both parties' wants. We should be able to get be able to get all of your needs met and some of your wants. Right? And what's important to know is that needs are very distinct. Some people think things that are wants are needs and vice versa, but needs are about what do you need to financially support yourself and take care of you and your children. Pay your bills, have some cushion, build financial goals, right? As if you were still married, right? Kind of living in that same mindset. Now, pre-divorce, it's not always that easy, but think of that as a need. I need to have, help at home so I can work. And we need to have daycare. We need to do these certain things, whatever that looks like. And then wants are like, well, I want this car, or I want the timeshare, right? Those are things that you can kind of do without, and we can be flexible about. So if we can kind of focus on those issues during mediation, you can get an agreement that looks much more like what both of you wanted versus maybe what just one person wanted and the other person, ends up feeling a lot more grief towards the process. Again, that's going to build animosity between you, especially if you're parents. Not only that, but mediation will substantially reduce the amount of attorney's fees you both pay. Yes, you're paying the mediator, and if you have attorneys, you're still going to have them in the process. And it can seem like in the short term, you're paying a little bit more if you're paying a mediator and both of your attorneys. But you have to look at the whole process, right? How long is the average divorce case? California, I think it's around 18 months. I think the last bit of information we have as far as average cost, about $17,000 a person. That might have been 2022, so I'll check the updated dates and let you guys know. But you have to think about that spread out, and if you can come up with a plan, hire a mediator who's organized, keep you on track, your attorneys are committed in doing their job, you should be able to turn things over a lot quicker, and again, in a way that you can control. Not to mention, and I've highlighted this, the impact mediation can have on how your children experience it, right? When you're in litigation and you have attorneys fueling the fire, because I can tell you they do it, right? And when you have that fuel being thrown and it's in children involved and you're trying to work through a parenting plan, whether you have a parenting plan or just fighting over financials, or whether you're litigating the parenting plan issue, it's important to know that it's going to change the way you treat each other outside of the litigation setting, right? It's going to be really hard when you guys just went to court and then in a couple hours you have to exchange the kids and interact and you won't even say a word to each other. Children pick up on these things, and it's going to impact other aspects of your life. This shouldn't be new, but I guess it is for a lot of people. Divorce is not what causes mental health issues, trauma-related responses, or just any other negative experience that children have of their parents separating, right? It's not just the divorce. It's the conflict of divorce that impacts the children's experience. So the number one question I ask is, what do you want your children's experience to be in the event of divorce? Like, what do you want their story to be to other people? Do you want it to be, kind of saying you guys didn't have it together, you constantly argued, it was drama all the time, and they were pushed back and forth? Or do you want to say, yeah, they separated but still got along, and I was never put in the middle, so they're better for it now, they're on their way, they're friends, and They have new partners. It's fine, right? That experience is really important. And so, why I'm starting with mediation and talking about divorce when I am a premarital planner is because I want to get you thinking about what the next kind of secret is, the secret that divorce attorneys don't want you to know about, and how you can utilize that agreement to get to the next place. So, the number two thing that divorce attorneys don't want you to tell you is premarital agreements can save you even more money on the divorce, whether you use mediation or not. One of those provisions specifically will be, will you require a certain amount of mediation in the event of divorce, right? Okay, we have this agreement in the event of divorce. We have to go to at least 5 hours of mediation before we file any motions, because at least it's going to force you to sit down and take advantage of this process that is meant to keep the control in the party's hands and save you a lot of money litigating very expensive issues that are short-term issues a lot of the time. Those are the biggest issues that are litigated, are a lot of the short-term. So longer-term issues usually are the things that get set for a trial, and the majority of cases settle before trial, often for a proposal that one party already said during the process. So a lot of the litigation occurs in the build up to trial. The motions you file in between for little things like temporary support, that stuff is what really adds up. So premarital agreement, one of the first things that you can really dictate is we will go to mediation. We will use this other alternative dispute resolution approach so that in the event of divorce, we don't spend tens of thousands of dollars litigating all these issues. And so when I talk about premarital agreements, I talk about how they're a tool for outlining the terms of your marriage. What happens with money that you earn during marriage? How are you going to invest? How are you going to spend? What are the rules for your marriage that you two both agree to live by so that there's not resentment and you're on the same page and you're building a life together, right? And so when you think about it like that, and you think about the secondary benefit of being in the event of divorce, here's what also happens. It's a very useful tool to build your relationship up before you even say I do, as well as make that commitment to the other person. Like, hey, I love you so much now, and I realize that life can change and things can change, and I promise to work really hard not to, but I want really hard not to let those things, break us up. But in case that happens, I want to make sure that we preserve the relationship that we built to this point, and we don't waste time and money fighting with each other. I want us both to have happy and healthy lives. Right? When you frame it like that, it's like, oh my God, this person really does love and care about me, that even if things don't work out, they, don't want us to be at each other's throats and have those crazy ex-husband and crazy ex-wife stories. And so when you view it like that, the benefit of that, what happens in the event of divorce, becomes a lot bigger of an issue, right? It's kind of like a will or a trust that you get in the event of death, but it applies to your life. You can actually see it play out. And if you two are working together before you even get married to decide what you're able to do with certain assets during the marriage and what happens to them in the event of divorce, you're deciding what works for the two of you and not anybody else's marriage, right? And there's not some third party deciding what those should be. A lot of people say, oh, we didn't need a prenup. We trust each other. We love each other. I'm not going to take his stuff. Well, even if you say that, you're still making a conscious decision. You're either having the government's prenup or one you get to make. So it's kind of like buying a template and just not making any changes and just saying, okay, I guess we'll just go with this free template that's included, or investing time in making the rules yourself. But it always really baffles me when people are like, oh, we don't need it, we love and trust each other. I'm like, it kind of just seems like you are half-assing it, right? Excuse my language, but that's kind of what it looks like. You're just taking the default. And there's so much more to know about the law and what these premarital agreements can do for you. Last week I did premarital agreements versus prenup video that you can go back and watch to kind of talk a little bit more about that. But you have to know that there's the benefit of what it's going to do to your marriage, the benefit of how it can help make the divorce process make it easier for the two of you to navigate, let alone the money it's going to save you. And the reason I say this is what divorce attorneys don't want you to know is because they make more money, right, on cases that litigate versus cases that don't, off of an individual case. For me, I like to have I get to serve a lot more people because I have cases that aren't in constant litigation. I have a couple cases that litigate, but majority of my cases are prenups and postnups and mediation cases of divorces and custody related issues. So it allows me to serve a whole lot more people versus taking a lot of money from one person. Although that can be much easier to have less turnaround on a firm, you just make more money when you're litigation. And again, litigation is necessary, but there's tools at your disposal right now that you can use to avoid high litigation costs in the future. The third thing, and kind of the last thing that divorce attorneys don't want you to know, is that you are in control of settlement. As a client in divorce, you are in control of settlement. But your attorney should be substantially guiding the process. And what I mean by that is, and I kind of hinted at the beginning, is that if an attorney is just saying yes and letting you file motions every time you ask and every time you propose it, that's a red flag to what's going on. And not only are you probably hurting your case, if there's children involved, you're definitely doing damage to them and their well-being because you're wastefully spending an attorney's fees. So you are always going to be the only person in charge of settlement. But a good attorney is going to keep you in check and say, no, this is not a route you can go, and this is not a route you should go, or there's so many other options. What I typically do with my clients, and I said, look, here's all the arguments you have, the legal arguments available. Here's the different ways we can tackle them. This way has this option. It's going to cost you a little bit more. Here's the timeline. And then we run through it. And I say, looking at all the issues in your case, this is my recommendation, because this issue is going to be a waste of time. It's not going to be resolved until trial. It's not an issue that the courts usually address on an interim basis. This issue, if we get ahead of it and get something filed now, then we can at least set the tone, but I recommend we get in with a private mediator or schedule a 4-way meeting with all the parties and attorneys or some other formal settlement meeting, because I think these issues can kind of work themselves out. And we talk about all the different possible outcomes. There are some cases where no matter what I say, the client wants to do what they want to do. And often I'm going to say, okay, I think you should have a different attorney. I'm not the right fit for you. And I say that because if you're spending several $100s an hour to invest in an attorney that's supposed to advocate for you and not listening to them, you're wasting your money. And I tell people that you are wasting your money on me. You are not listening to me. And if you feel like that's the route you want to take your case, you should be able to do that. That's your right. And I can make you some recommendations for some attorneys that might be a better fit for what you're looking to do, but that's not me. And that's okay. It's okay for the attorney to be that way. And it's okay for the client to want to do things a certain way. But if you hire an attorney, they should be guiding you and telling you the options and how those are going to play out. And don't get me wrong, I have lots of clients just disagree with me. And if it's on the fence, I'm going to say, okay, if that's the argument you want to make, if you want to, spend the money investing and make that argument for the judge, I can absolutely do it because there's a legal basis and a factual basis. If I'm missing one of those things, or sometimes both of those things, then I'm not taking that matter to a hearing, and I will tell my clients, nope, if you want to make that argument, you can do that on your own or hire somebody else, but there's no legal or factual basis for what you're asking for, and you're hurting your case and wasting time and money. But there's a lot of things where, it's kind of on the fence. It could go either way. There are some facts there. I'm not going to tell my clients, like, no, you can't do that because it's a loser, right? Or unless I really know that to be the case. So there's some balance. But at the end of the day, ask your attorneys questions that you aren't necessarily looking for them to give you the answer you already want to hear. You want to hear something new. You want to hear something that challenges you. You also want to know if you're being unreasonable or maybe not seeing both sides, because that is going to be a telltale sign of how that attorney responds to you, of whether or not your attorney's fees are going to go way up or they're going to be somewhat reasonable because you have an attorney that's going to manage that. So these 3 things are things I want people to know when it comes to premarital planning, because you can get ahead of these things by doing proper premarital planning, including a prenup. Now, I break down my method, my Marry Me Smart method, into 3 phases. One of those phases I actually don't participate in at all, but I'll tell you why. Phase 1 is my Marry Me Smart premarital planning course, which is currently live, and I'll be sharing a link on my page. It'll be pinned at the top so you can constantly access it. That is phase 1. It's the discussion and disclosure aspect of premarital planning. Discuss things that you want for your future, disclose financials and expectations. It's a real collaborative conversation. It's 8 segments, 47 mini lessons that you can do on your own time. They're really quick, 3 to 7 minute videos, and a comprehensive workbook that you can work through. That's phase 1. You get through that, you have all the discussions that most people never have until a problem arises. And that usually is the problem because you don't have a plan for resolution of a lot of these common marital pitfalls. Phase 2 is brainstorming and agreement phase. This is building a marital operating agreement. So this is not a prenup, but it has a lot of crossover issues, and it's meant to build an agreement that could spark the yes or no answer to the do we need a prenup question. And so instead of paying for an attorney right away and asking them, well, do I need a prenup? Here's what's going on. Building this course is going to tip you off on a lot of issues that are, it seems like if we want this to happen, this document isn't legal, so we need to accomplish some of these goals, and maybe we should talk to an attorney. So it navigates through a detailed agreement that you're going to put in writing, but it's very clear that it's not legally binding in all states because I'm only a practicing California attorney and I don't give anybody legal advice. We do not have an attorney-client relationship, but I use my experience to craft an outline of a lot of the conversations and discussions that are important to brainstorming. Do we need a prenup? Now, phase 3 is legalize it. Do we need a prenup? Talk to attorneys. I think the wedding budget should also always include both parties talking to an attorney for at least an hour. Go talk to an attorney, educate yourself on the law, not what Google says, because your specific circumstance can spark a number of laws that you don't even know to search for. And that's why Google is not a replacement for a law degree. But 1 hour, depending on where you live, can range from $300 to $500, and it can be the world of difference in how you approach your marriage. So that's why I have it broken down into 3 phases. Both the premarital planning course and the marital operating agreement course are live and available for purchase. I also have live webinars coming up that you can hop into to learn more about the course specifically. So I won't get into any more further details, but there's a link on my page and you can join the webinars and you can learn more, and we can set up even a phone call consultation for you to talk to me specifically so we can craft the right premarital plan for you. That's all I have for today, guys. I will talk to you soon. Don't forget to join my Facebook group, my Marry Me Smart Premarital Planning, and you can follow me on Instagram at Chelsea Pagan Esquire. Have a lovely evening. Talk soon.